Welcome, everybody. This is the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley, and every week we bring you the stories of people all over the world who are making their communities, locally, globally, and digitally, all the better. We're part of Rotary, an organization that has 1.2-ish million people in 36,000 clubs dedicated to the premise of service above self. Our particular club, the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley, is an online and asynchronous club, meaning that people who are crazy, crazy busy have the opportunity to be part of a very interesting group of folks dedicated to service to others, and we think that's pretty awesome. You can learn more by going to our website at rotary.cool, which we're proud of. Today, we're going to talk to you about playgrounds. You might think, oh, yeah, playgrounds, a good thing, all good. As it happens, loads and loads of playgrounds are not ideally set up for just about everybody. And we're going to learn more about that today from a lady who has put heart and soul into making playgrounds all the more accessible to all the more people in the community. It is a wonderful story, and we are honored to share it. Olenka Villarreal, welcome to the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley, and I hand the mic over to you.
That's very kind. Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be here, especially as I do recognize that the thematic for the International Rotary is the magic of Rotary. And so here we are as Magical Bridge, feeling very in line with your thematic and thanking you for the incredible service, here and around the world. So yes, we are talking today about not only playgrounds, but the importance of spaces like a playground and the opportunities that communities have to create community with a playground that's designed for everyone. And so I start by always asking my audience, what is really the importance of a playground? And if you'd like to answer the question, you may, or I can sort of keep going. Does anybody want to sort of throw out a comment about what might be the importance of a playground in a community?
I'd say it's to foster joy.
Good. Yes, it should foster joy. You're right. And actually, if you sort of get very technical about the real benefits that people do find playgrounds should be offering, not only are they the community gathering spaces, but cognitive benefits, to engage the body and mind, behavioral, many different young people and older people benefit from the movement, physical to increase your strength. And those are the obvious benefits that we find in typical playgrounds. Um, I found myself in a situation with two girls. I apologize about that. Two girls that had very different needs. And when Ava, my older one, was born, I realized that the playground that I loved so much with my older daughter, Emma, was not so welcoming. And so, as such, I ended up finding that the playgrounds today, while they are compliant to law and created to really serve the community, they really are not doing as much as they could be. And so the Magical Bridge Foundation was formed through that realization in 2016 as a way to sort of reimagine what does a public playground, what could it be, and how could we do more. And I also very much appreciate and know that the Rotary clubs around the world are often engaged with the building and the creation of community playgrounds. And so for me, this is particularly meaningful because I want to recognize the good work that's been done, but also bring the awareness about that there are people being continued to be left out. So I'm now part of this statistic where 1 in 4 people around the world are living with a disability. So my family prior to Ava wasn't part of this statistic, but now wherever we go, whatever we do, we consider what does the whole family enjoy and what can we do together. So while many people with disabilities can often be thought of as somebody perhaps that uses a wheelchair or a mobility device. The truth is, most disabilities are either invisible or they are people that are not, wheelchair users. And I like to just take a moment and talk about the Americans with Disabilities Act, which was refreshed in 2023, but it passed in 1990. And it was really created so people with a disability, particularly a wheelchair disability, could access public spaces. But like I said, only about 10% of people with disabilities are wheelchair users. So Magical Bridge really looks at all of those circles in the yellow box. we really are creating spaces that would welcome the whole family, which means everybody, no matter what your age, your ability, can enjoy your public playground. And this is a black and white image I like to use, which is not a very magical one because it really represents a typical sort of playground that you may find in the community today. Um, there are many things that aren't really right with this particular playground, and one of them I'm going to bring up is this. You wonder sometimes, how do these two-story playgrounds sort of fit even the checkbox of a wheelchair user? How does somebody in a wheelchair, how do they legally get away with doing those kinds of structures? And I want to show you this because you see this little platform below where this young boy was transferred from his wheelchair. It's called a transfer platform. And what happens is the industry assumes that if you're a wheelchair user, you transfer yourself to that little platform and then you pull yourself up, just like this young fellow's doing. If he really was a wheelchair user, he would have to use his arms to go to the top. And then what does he do? It's really sort of not only not very, dignified, if you will, but it's also not really what I call the ideal way to be inclusive. So these today's typical playgrounds, unfortunately, have a lot of shortcomings. They don't have movement many times. They don't have swinging. They have these dense pathways that can be very overwhelming for our friends and family members with autism, which, by the way, now is a statistic that's 1 in 34, which is, a lot of people around us have autism. Retreats, places where you can take a break. I'm going to use people with autism again. When they come onto this type of a play structure and there are people walking around, rolling around, if you will, that frenetic experience where there's no predictability, people coming from all avenues, that is overwhelming and that can really trigger their behavior. So the imagination of the equipment tends to be not that interesting. There's a lack of shade. A lot of the times that the ground cover has loose parts, those tan bark pieces that you see in playgrounds, those aren't friendly to a wheelchair. So I point these out because there's so many things that need to be done better in our playgrounds today. And when I talk to, children younger than all of us, I like to say three things that rhyme. A playground should be one where there's a way, it's easy to play, and it's magical enough to stay. So that means, can you get there easier? Can you get there easily? Meaning, rolling, walking, it's easy to get there. And once you're there, you can move around the way that works well for you. Is it easy for you to play when you arrive? There's plenty for you to do. And is there enough shade? Are there benches? Are you going to be comfortable to hang out and stay? So Magical Bridge came about from the realization that while I live in the heart of Silicon Valley, Palo Alto, I was given the opportunity through my city to reimagine what a public playground might be. Now, I was not a trained playground person. I came from Silicon Valley startup world, if you will. But they said, well, we do have these parks that are all accessible to law, but it doesn't seem like we have a playground that meets the needs that you're looking for, a real family playground. And I just want to quickly also mention that when I realized the playground was not right for my daughter who had disabilities and my other daughter, so I was looking for a place to take both girls to the same park that would be fun for both of them. Was not looking to create a new wheelchair park or a special needs park. But I realized it very soon that my neighbor Carl was a man using a wheelchair that had typical children. He couldn't play with them at the parks. I spoke to adults, I spoke to older adults, and I realized that a lot of people were being left off of the public playgrounds. So we did the research, fast forward all this, but we did the research, took about 7 long years to reimagine, well, what could a playground look like? We looked online all over the world to see what would inspire us. What kind of playground were we looking to bring to show as an example that it could work for all abilities? And we just didn't find anything. So we really created the Magical Bridge Playground in Palo Alto exactly 10 years ago, almost to the day, to reimagine what a park could be to bring people together. We now have 10 playgrounds open here and around the world, and many more in development. I just bring those over here. We've gotten a lot of nice awards and recognition. And in many ways, it's a little bit surreal because why should we get a recognition for creating a family playground? Magical Bridge is a community gathering place. It's a place where people come together to play. It should not be so award winning, if you will. It should just be the norm. And some of the things that make a magical bridge different than other parks, than other playgrounds, is that we recognize that predictability and the layout of a space really matters. It helps people to plan a visit. If you are someone with autism, you know what to expect. If you're somebody with low vision, no vision, you also can plan your trip to a playground. And that means, for instance, we heard from people that were blind when they go to these public playgrounds when you have a space that has all kinds of things together, whether they're swings or other play experiences, if you're not sure what's going to hit you with movement, it makes your visit tenuous. So when you come to a magical bridge, you always have at least 7 of these zones that sort of model the developmental milestones that we all need, right? So we benefit from sliding, we benefit from swinging and from imagination play, and all of these things are clustered so that it makes sense to the person that it comes to visit. And I'll spend just quickly going through in general why these are important, right? So when you come into a playground and there's a slide, there's a lot of things that it helps you develop your muscle and your strength and your coordination. And each magical bridge has these community gathering spaces because we do really message that this is for all ages. And I do mean all ages. We have older adults coming to swing. We have adults like my daughter now, who's one age developmentally and another chronologically, right? There are those in our community that might be, 30 on the outside, but maybe they're 10 on the inside. And so we do have a lot of thoughtful programs, music, activities, book readings, community groups come out because it really further underscores that this is a place for everyone. Spinning. Most of our parks today don't include movement like this, but I don't know if you would know this, but somebody that has attention deficit disorder, the kids that have a hard time sitting in class still. Well, when you allow them to spin for 5 to 8 minutes, that actually allows them to return to a classroom environment almost as though they had taken Ritalin. So the movement of spinning really helps regulate your brain for memory and for learning, which is also why we're so passionate about bringing more movement to these school playgrounds. All magical bridge playgrounds have more of a kindness and conversation corner where we encourage people to get together, reflect on why it's important to be kind. We have the tot zone. Swinging, did you know that the research now is showing really that even older adults, as they start to lose memory and patients that have autism, or sorry, Alzheimer's, they actually benefit from that vestibular movement and it helps with memory retention. So we often have older adults coming to swing and enjoy, and swinging, of course, just benefits everyone. Music is, that is the one part that really activates every module of our brains. And so we really honor Silicon Valley with all of our playgrounds by having a laser harp or some other innovative music element. This one is tuned to be pleasing to the ear of somebody with autism. It's on the pentatonic scale instead of the Western scale. So it just makes it for an environment that is soothing. Because we are sort of this new kind of a playground in the world, which again is a little astounding, but it is what it is. We also find ourselves doing as much innovation as we can because the playground industry is really okay to sort of continue the way they're doing because it meets the legal code, but there's much that's still missing. For instance, this simple idea of having a bench connected to a slide. If you come down the slide and you happen to be a wheelchair user, you scoot over and you wait for your wheelchair to be returned, right? You don't have to sit on the ground. We also created this hideaway hut for people that just need a quiet place to sit. People with autism, when they get overextended, overstimulated by the words, sometimes in busy spaces, well, they can come and sit in this very pleasant wooden hideaway hut. It's also for kids that need a little quiet time. So we are constantly looking at ways to improve and do better We've done these incredible maps that help people that need wayfinding for low vision guests. And we also find it's important to really think about everyone. Okay, I'm popping up a little visual here because this is in our own hometown, this Tunnel Tops Playground. This whole project cost over $100 million. And just with those few minutes that I spent with you today talking about accessibility and thinking about people that are wheelchair users and need a place sort of to move and get around. I mean, if you look at this image of this playground, do you see how this would not even be friendly to a wheelchair user? There's tan bark, there's sand, there's no shade where you can actually sit. Is there a place to retreat from the active play? Well, if you were a wheelchair user, what could you really even do here? That's kind of the bare minimum, right? Um, does this look like it would be an inclusive place if you were with a family member who had a disability? Well, I'll answer that for you. The answer is no. And that was $118 million. Okay. So they spend money on projects that really don't even include many, many members of our society. I'll just pop another one up. This is another one in San Francisco. And I only bring up, I mean, you could pull up any image of an inclusive park. This is another more of a typical, what they call inclusive playgrounds that you'll see in cities around maybe the world. Many times they're joined with all these ramps. There's not a lot of play value in the ramps. And while the ramps are friendly to a wheelchair user, those kinds of connected structures are not friendly to many other people, including those with autism. You'll see there's very little movement here, and there's no real places to retreat. You also, see limited seating. So, and this is a recent playground that was put in for, $3.6 million. So I think I'm just trying to show that by, just that they may look cool when you kind of look at them, but when you really kind of think through who would it would really be left out of these designs, you realize there's a lot going on that we could do better. So Magical Bridge, in the end, we are a playground and community building kind of foundation. We always have a tremendous amount of programs. We use kindness ambassadors, which are teens and retired adults. We're very mindful of the fact that we're in a lonelier society and a community today, and we are Magical Bridge is the place where community comes together. We have events, we work with kids, we do kindness kits and so on. And all in all, we feel like we create happier, healthier, and kinder people, and feel that when the playground is welcoming to everyone, it sets the tone for the communities that we want to be a part of. And we are proud to be in communities that we are in, and welcome you, the Rotarians, and your families to get to know us and join our magical movement. And I'm happy to stop and have conversation or take some questions.
Excellent. Well, let's first introduce the group that we have got. I'll go ahead and have you stop sharing your screen there.
Hmm.
In addition to our speaker, Olenka Villarreal, we have in Houston, Rory Olson. My name is Rushton Hurley. I'm in San Jose, California. And let's just start by talking about some of the history of designing the first Magical Bridge playground. You talked about studying examples from different parts of the world. What are some of the ideas that came up as a part of talking to people in different places that you can point to?
Hmm. Yeah, so we did spend some time first sort of scrubbing through, well, what kinds of playgrounds are we installing around the country, and what really makes a playground compliant to law. And that's where we came across the ADA kind of accessible playgrounds, if you will. And we knew we wanted to do better. So we did reach across the pond and look around in places around the world to see what people were doing. And what we discovered is that when it came to try to do better, when it came to try to do more inclusive designs, what that usually meant for people is that they would add some ornamental features, or maybe they would add some things that weren't really necessarily tied to the play value or the needs of a community, and maybe it would be fancier lights or, things like that that really didn't make an impact on the usage. So what we did is we spent a lot of time researching the different groups that were really unintentionally left out. So that means the families that have someone with autism. What do they need? What do they get when they pay for private or school therapies? I mean, what are they doing behind closed doors that could be replicated on the playground, that's available, right? Many of our kids get therapies once a week, twice a week. That's like going on a diet once a week, right? If you have an outdoor space where you can keep practicing and doing that, then it does help you much more. So we did learn a lot. I mean, we have had white papers written about it, and I'm, a guest lecturer at many different universities teaching people about sort of, the identification of needs, right? The human centric design. What do we need and what can we do in an outdoor environment like a playground? And that's what we are constantly iterating.
Can you give an example of a moment when you were looking at the different kind of designs on different parts of the country around the world, and there was
Mhm.
a real aha moment for you?
Oh, yeah, sounds a good question. Well, I think the aha moment really was one where, I mean, I have quite a few aha moments. One, how much money is spent on really playgrounds that don't necessarily serve everyone, in cities that are very pleased to say they have a playground every, whatever, 10 miles, right? But if that playground doesn't serve 25% of your families, then wouldn't it be better to have fewer playgrounds and maybe just have at least one, community playground that people can enjoy? I think another moment for me was really the fact that a lot of parents are not considered in a playground. Anytime you read about inclusive playgrounds, they reference children, but what about the children without disabilities whose parents have a disability? It could be a veteran, it could be a grandparent that's raising the kids. And that also is then exclusionary, right? That they can't participate in their child's play experiences. So, um, yeah, I mean, there's really so many different aha moments. And I think the biggest aha moment I continue to have is as we celebrate our 10-year anniversary, that I'm still always on the lookout for that playground that I think has just really been designed to work for everyone. And, we are looking for those. I mean, um, many families continue to share that they have stopped going to ADA parks or accessible parks just because they know they're not going to be right for their family, right? So um, we're trying to shift the narrative to try to create more places that show by example. You can really create places for everyone, and that's what we're doing.
Well, one of the things that struck me as we were going through the presentation is that your first playground was in 2015 in Palo Alto. And then I was looking at it pretty quickly, but it looked like the next one was in 2020, and then there's just this raft of things. Can you
Mhm.
talk a little bit about the process for the organization
Hmm.
in getting more and more communities interested in having a magical bridge playground?
Oh, well, thank you for asking. Yeah, so it's true. We did end up spending like I said, the 7 long years. I, did this completely on my own time and with a bunch of people that sat around my dining room table. And we did raise really for Palo Alto the money privately, almost entirely privately, $4.3 million to create that first playground. And believe me, I did not think I was going to be doing any more work like this. I felt like I checked my community services box for life. But then we had this avalanche of cities that were saying, well, we would like one like this, or we would like one. And so that's when we started we formed a 501(c)(3) nonprofit foundation and started the Magical Bridge with the curiosity if we would be able to do this as a viable sort of a nonprofit business. And so Redwood City was the first to step forward and say, we really want a magical bridge. And they signed up with us. And so it took us, well, we raised $3.6 million for them too. And then we built the playground and it did open in 2020 around COVID. But what happened, and your observation is exactly right. What happened is one of our county supervisors here in the Santa Clara County recognized that Magical Bridge Palo Alto was getting about 20,000 guests every month, and they were driving for hours. And he said, I'm going to create a matching grant so that each of our districts in Santa Clara County has at least one magical bridge where families don't have to drive and they have it within driving distance. So, with his help, we had two rounds of funding where it was a match between the city, the county, and then we would raise some money. The reason we were raising money and it wasn't automatically in there is because we were a new kind of a project. We weren't necessarily already a predetermined project from city planning. And so here we were coming in with this new thing like, oh, well, who's going to pay for that? That wasn't in our budget, which is why those earlier playgrounds, then we had six that we had activated through this county grant. And that one, we just completed the final one in Mountain View 2 months ago. We opened it. So that's a great question. And we did get some funding. And now we're getting cities that are coming to us more fully funded because they are asking for a magical bridge. And so they apply for their own grants and so on. Um,
So Rory asks in the chat if there's one type of a perfect playground for all types of users. I think he's teeing you up for, a lot of good commentary on that.
Well, the playground for everyone is where everyone feels welcome. And so we like to think that Magical Bridge is that playground. And I'll be honest with you, we've struggled with the word inclusive because the reality is when you tell someone that that's the kind of space you're creating, for people that don't know, they'll say, "Oh, well, we have one of those inclusive playgrounds, or we have those in our town." But really, for us, inclusive means everyone. And it means, Rory or Rushton, if you were to come to a magical bridge and you felt like swinging and doing everything in the playground, not only would you be able to, nobody would even give you another look because it's not unusual when you see older adults swinging. And, it's just a way to connect with community and coupled with the programming. We really are finding that it is really that place where community comes together, either to play, to interact, to take guests, to take visitors, to come for the programs. And I think we can all agree that today more than ever we need those. We've kind of lost shared values in our world, and shared venues become even more important, right? So we've become that place, and I hope that you'll get to visit and have a play day with us one day soon, Rory.
The the mention that you had a moment ago of spending 7 years of heading it up, how has the organization evolved as a part of trying to expand to get to different districts to do the things that you do, the fundraising that's got to be a part of it? What are some of the high points of the development of the organization itself?
Yes, thank you. Well, it has been a journey, right? So we started as a group of enthusiastic volunteers with, a lot of love in our heart and a spring in our step, if you will. But it really is, we are a very you know a real foundation with a big mission, and so we have evolved. Our board has evolved with us in terms of the gaps that we found we needed. But what we've also done is those first, really almost the first 10 projects, we did everything, right? So we not only did the community outreach, we did the design, we managed the project, we helped raise the money, then we did the programs, right? So we did everything. And so we did realized with a very smart COO that I know how that we don't have to do everything, right? So we know what our sweet spot is. So we now have this new model to work with cities, which is a license agreement where we have our design standards and we can work with local architects, which we're doing right now on Marin. So we have sort of the must-haves. This is what you must have to call it a magical bridge and also to have these components that serve the people that we feel we need to serve, everyone. But they can make it their own. For instance, when we did in New Zealand, they used the Maori community. That's an indigenous community in New Zealand. And so their magical bridge is familiar, but it's very different. It has their elements woven in. And so we are excited about working in a smarter, more efficient way that allows us to get our work into different cities. And we don't have to do everything, but just share the best of what we've done with the design as well as the programming. And we're constantly just looking for people that would like to help and support us, and we learn from them. So we know a lot of Rotarians are very knowledgeable, and we welcome any and all feedback as you have it.
Well, it's certainly our hope that the recordings will be useful in getting the word out there, as not just among Rotary, but among anybody who
Yes.
is craving good news about the cool things that happen here, there, and everywhere. What we'll do is we'll
Thank you.
wind down, and then I'll hand it back to you. For all of you who have joined us to celebrate 10 years of Magical Bridge Playgrounds, and then also 10 years of the Rotary Club of Silicon Valley, as it turns out.
Mm. Mm.
We thank you for spending your time sharing that opportunity you have to hear a story and to let it bring you a certain amount of joy and meaning, right? That's what service is about. And we hope that you will let others know that these kinds of stories are available. We in the Rotary of E-Club of Silicon Valley never take a week off. So we have stories every single week in an archive that you can go back and fill your spirit if you are in need of such. As we always like to do, we hand it back to our speaker for the final word. So, Olenka, what would you like people to have clearly in mind as they finish the video or the podcast?
Well, I'll use this opportunity really to do a wonderful shout out to the E Club, because really, as we are, you are creating an opportunity for people of, all abilities, if you will, and for their convenience to be able to log in as they do. And so I really congratulate you for the thoughtfulness of the programming, and being able to reach an audience that perhaps sometimes would have a harder time to make it to meetings and so on. So I know that may not be the overarching intent, but it's also just like with Magical Bridge, we are serving people with disabilities, but we really are the best playground available, and we're serving all families. So the moral of the story is, when we, provide for the margins, we always capture everybody that comes in between, and we never know what the future holds for all of us. So when we have a world of programming, groups like yours, playgrounds like ours that are considering the needs of everybody, no matter what stage of life we're in, I think that's the kind of world that I want to grow old in. And so I'll leave you with our tagline, which is kindness is magical. And we invite any and all of you to come and play with us or get to know us on magicalbridge.org. And so nice to be here today. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, and thank everyone. We will see you next week.